Good afternoon, everyone. Now, most of the faces I see are either my friend or my client or my future client. So, welcome to you all. As we speak, we are the last one to speak on this panel. And generally, there's been a saying that last 2 years has been extremely good for chemical sector. Couple of months or 2-3 quarters has been really bad, at least perception-wise in the chemical sector. My personal view is that this is a phase. This is a cleaning up phase. It will get cleaned and the market is back to the game again. Currently, India is about what 240, 250 billion dollar worth of a chemical industries, and we believe that just with a 10% compounded growth, if we grow for another 22 years time, by 2047, we become absolutely 2 trillion chemical economy. Now, is it something looks difficult? No, when we see size of 250 versus 2 trillion, oh, this looks really big. But the power of compounding, you just say 10% every year. Does it look achievable? Possibly yes. My personal view that we far exceed that value, shorter than what we plan this is. So in the line of thinking, we have gathered a panel of friends here. Most of them have done work with me as advisor or as transaction or some deals. My first question to you, Mukesh. I think I have a personal experience of dealing 4 transactions with Solvay in last 15 years' time. At a time when Solvay itself has split into 2 companies, right? Can you throw a light from a global perspective? Solvay is one of the oldest 160 years old company. How do you see world from outside and how do you see world from India inside? And going forward, the importance of India manufacturing, India for India market, India for the global market. Can you please throw some light on that?
Okay. Thank you. First of all, thank you to Prashant for inviting me here and for you to make sure that I'm here. Yeah, so Solvay, or now that I represent Syensqo, the specialty part of the business, as you said, we call ourselves a new startup, 7 months old. Started as a unicorn itself because from day one we were 8 billion. The global perspective on chemical industry, I think you heard in the previous session, from morning to evening we use chemicals. So as long as we are living here, the chemicals are here to stay. We saw in COVID the only businesses which were running were the chemicals one, and I think that's when the general public at large realized how essential the chemicals are to our living. So I think ups and downs will be there. That's kind of cyclical. The consumption goes up, goes down. But overall trajectory, and especially in India, I think it's going to stay going upwards, right? And how do we look at India? Are we going to look at India? I think it's not only about India, it's the whole geopolitical environment where today the focus is produced locally for local needs. You aren't looking anywhere at the moment to look for exports. Having said that, I think today I export majority of my products which is produced in India. So India is a market which is growing. So you look at a potential of what we will need tomorrow. So without compromising on the scale, you put up a plant, you service India, and whatever is surplus you export out. So I think that approach is going to continue. That's what is going to be in terms of manufacturing.
Why only surplus of India to be exported? Why not export is exported, India is India? Why leftover for the world?
Why produce in India only for exports?
Because you said that the surplus of that we export.
Yeah, no, you export is your filler. It's very unlikely that we will see India as a pure export hub, especially after the experience of China. Today everybody is talking about de-risking China. Companies burned their fingers in Russia after the war. Normally we all say, not if China goes to war with Taiwan, it's when. So if it's when, and with large stakes there, people need to de-risk out. And India is so far managing it well, it's neutral, but we have our own issues too. So could we get dragged into that war? We don't know. So people are being cautious. So it's not. On the other hand, if you look at our own infrastructure, we still are not placed to do business with, and I think that perception still hangs for us. So.
Which is the easy market to do business with?
There's none, but I think we suffer from every economy has its own peculiarities, but India still has a lot to do. The perception is.
Which is that easy market to do business with?
Sorry?
Which is that easy market to do business with?
No, I said there is no easy market per se.
So then why we say that India is not an easy market?
It's a question of perception. It's a question of perception.
Absolutely.
I think I'll give you an example. One of the major hurdle is we don't have a dispute resolution mechanism. If I get into a dispute today with someone, if I go to the court route, it'll be anywhere between 7 to 10 years. The government itself goes back on this. People say the perception, not talking about, that you can have a contract with the government, and if things go bad, you're gone. Because if you can go to the courts, you win in the court, government will go to the Supreme Court, you will win there, they will go and change the law.
But as you said,
and I've heard this firsthand. So,
heard or experienced? Heard or experienced?
No, fortunately we haven't experienced this.
Absolutely.
But I've heard people do that. No, there are companies who have experienced this.
Absolutely, but it's a perception. And at times
it's not a perception. One case happens, 10 companies start to talk about it.
That we think other way around. Deterrent is the best medicine, right? So deterrent for any action is the best medicine. It's a preventive. So once you know the legal system is bad, so there is not great dispute. Business is business. A general businessman now only one thing, ki panga mat lo, rasta nikal do. So when you know the market, maybe I'm an Indian born person, my grounds are in India, we have grown from a ground zero level to being India's largest mid-market M&A firm. 35 years I've been doing only one thing, dealing with business owners. I realized one thing very clearly, that challenges are everywhere. Either you make challenge as an excuse to not to take action, or take challenge head on. Find solution, the world is
all the lawyers will go off if that was to be true.
Absolutely.
But there is no
so
company here who doesn't have a legal problem.
So perception is a bigger problem.
It's
but
not only a perception.
We have dealt with the US laws, we have dealt with European laws. It is so difficult sometimes to deal business with European countries because of a laws only. So anyway, in the interest of time, what I would believe, a mindset of say company like Solvay who see world from above. We in India see world from a ground. But we also have to see above the ground what's going on around the market. So why is that we always see that the export is the only opportunity? I would rather believe that with a country of 140 crore population, we are the largest population in India. At all said and done, we still have a long way to go growth. So China is China. We know that we have left behind a long miles, at least 20 years behind them. That doesn't take away one opportunity that is still a scope to grow. So if we think of India as India itself and think that let China do what they do, they are good in mass production. At least someone said in a panel that they are good into mass production, continuous process. The moment it comes to batch product, customized, and wherever there is an involvement of machine plus people, the involvement of people is there, we have a still advantage of others. Cost of people, skills and migration and flexibility. So why don't we think India is a business for India to grow a business in India and then think how do we sell what we make rather than make what others want from you.
That's exactly what I said. That you put up a plant in India for India, but there is a scale at which you really want the plant to get the economies of scale. So in many of the specialities, you still don't have that mass in India, right? So what do? You still come and invest in India because you know that tomorrow there will be demand. So till that time, you make sure that you have products which you could export out. Who knows, by the time our demand comes, our exports become that efficient that we might just convert it into an export base too.
There was a time when Solvay acquired Rhodia. You were part of Rhodia, if I remember correctly. That's the time I did transaction with you. And Rhodia itself was acquired by Solvay, or I would say other way around, Rhodia management was acquired, Rhodia came along with the company. Right? And then you make a monolith size. And now you have split it, Solvay, into two parts. I'll still say you Solvay only. Syensqo is still a difficult on my tongue, so I'll still say you Solvay only. What has been the principal reason of Solvay dividing into two parts? Because the purpose of this question is we have to believe the story of $2 trillion by 2047. My view is 2040, not 47. Do the world also see the same way as we see in India that this is possible? And if that be the case, what has been the reason behind making specialty and the rest as a separate vehicle?
It's basic that these two businesses need different approach to manage it. You know, the specialty is an innovation-led, capex-driven business. Essentials is more operation-related. You know, it's a commodity. You do not control price that much. Your margins come from managing your operations. You need to be cost efficient, right? So two different approaches, and obviously specialty offers higher returns. So if they are all under one umbrella, you have a limited purse. So whenever the investment comes, specialty will gain over that. So just not to dilute the focus on essential, we decided two business needs different approach, so just separate it out.
Which business you have better chance to grow in terms of value, not valuation?
Both will grow. I'm not saying
That is commodity as well as specialty.
Yeah.
Well, it is.
It's just that the two, you need two different mindsets to run those businesses. So not to club those two unders, you just divided the company.
Do you anticipate any restrictions, any hurdles in the path of Indian chemical sector in going to a size at which you can be globally competitive, or maybe Indian multinational, the way it should be seen as?
I don't see much as of now. We have our issues. I mean, I can give you a laundry list. We were when we sit in front of DCPC, we have that whole list out. But I think by and large, no. It's not, it just needs the will. I think Indian entrepreneurs, they are pretty good. You mentioned about custom manufacturing, that's upcoming. And that could be one way of taking the smaller volumes out to these multi-purpose plants. You could do that. Green chemistry, we are an agrarian economy. So we have a lot of source here which can feed into green chemistry. That's one big potential. And let's see.
Less product, more efficacy.
Sorry?
Less production, more efficacy.
That's always the story.
That's perfect situation. Now, my next question to Nilesh bhai, Indian multinational, I would say, or Indian powerhouse, Gharda Chemical. Like, I would not miss a point to convey that there is a commonality between Gharda and Solvay. Gharda sold polymer business to Solvay, and this is both of it together. Seeing from the eyes of Gharda.
And we are back there now.
So now from a perspective of an Indian entrepreneurship, do you see that India will create another Solvay, another BSF, another Syngenta, another NSS company in the time to come for next 25 years' time?
Definitely. I absolutely have no doubt in that. You look at the capabilities that India has in terms of its process chemistry, in terms of their ability to quickly adapt to new technologies that's happening around the world. It brings tremendous amount of ability, capability and knowledge. You know, the ability to actually put that knowledge into action and convert that into products which are saleable across the world. If you look at, you know, if you look at, probably might not have the right numbers though, but although, you know, China probably currently accounts for about 44% of its GDP is coming from the chemical industry, and India is about 7% thereof. You know, there is a lot of scope to grow. And if you look at the last 10 years, the chemical industry has grown in India, and I think there is, if the government and industry and the academia actually sit together and work together, I see no dearth in the amount of potential that is available in India to create a brand new Indian multinational and a global institution. There is absolutely no doubt. I mean, look at in the agrochemical business, although through acquisitions, UPL is the number 5th largest agrochemical company in the world today. But having said
32
that,
acquisitions.
yes, but even if there is acquisition, you look at it from a perspective of a benefit or the kind of opportunity that it provides to India, is that the entire manufacturing base which is in the West has the ability to move down to India now. So which would mean that it comes back to the fact that, which means that the government and the entire system should adhere or rather change itself to make itself more friendly. When I just heard the discussion between Mukesh and you about, being, creating an environment for growth, things like that. I think all it needs is becoming more friendly to the industry. I think there is a definite fact that an industry is for profit, and I think everybody must understand that and must also appreciate that the profit is meant to grow further. And that growth brings in more and more of it, so that India, which needs the employment currently, also continues to gain that employment in the larger sense. But of course, while I speak about this, I kind of will flag a few issues that are, coming in the way of that kind of a creation of an Indian multinational. When we look at the chemical industry today, you have chemical zones across the country. Problem is that the chemical zones are there are no buffer zones around it. Buffer zones often are used as ability or vehicles to give approvals for people to come and build, commercial centers.
Or make it real estate centric. Make it more real estate centric.
Anything. I mean, just keeps on developing. So that buffer zone is not there. Look at the recent. I live in Bombay. You live in Bombay. You've seen what happened in Dombivli recently. I mean, Dombivli is a chemical zone. I mean, the fact is, I think it is the administration which is responsible to take care of the fact that they should not have given residential permission within the buffer zone, And today the fact is that the industry has to relocate itself. Now, you are coming up with brand new industrial zones across the country. How are you going to enforce the buffer zones? You can't expect the industry tomorrow to just lift lock, stock and barrel and go to another chemical zone and try to build the entire system once again.
The people will not come.
Exactly. Look at Germany. I mean, you have Bayer and BASF there. Look at the kind of thing, the last, I think, ever since they started, they're in existence in the same place. And the buffer zones are maintained so well. And they're from commodity chemicals right up to the end product. Yeah. So they're fully integrated. So the most hazardous chemicals are being made there. The most hazardous chemicals are being manufactured there. And there's absolutely no, you don't read anything that there is something wrong or something has happened. Just like what happens in, in India, in any chemical zone. You don't see that. So things like these are things Gharda Chemicals is a truly Indian-born, Indian-managed, Indian developed, on its own company. I can say very proudly that we are a Atmanirbhar, made in India and make in India company.
And make for India and make for India.
So we do make for India as well, but we make for the rest of the world as well. And products of different quality, of the best quality, and also at the same time, we make sure that there is enough innovation which is a part of the system. We are not copying a technology from somewhere. We want to make sure that we develop indigenous technology. We want to make sure that that is employed, it is commercialized, and then through that commercialization, there is enough growth that is available for the same. And similarly, we expect that the entire industry also grows that way. So I have no reasons to suspect or no reasons to say that India cannot bring the next Syngenta or why Syngenta BASF alone. I mean, you talk about any large business today. I mean, look at Reliance today. I think by far the ability in terms of having to take that risk and having the guts to build the largest.
Single largest refinery. Yeah. Not largest. So, single largest refinery in the shortest possible time.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's the not invented here syndrome most of the time. But as soon as you decide to take a leap and think big, I don't think there is nothing that can stop India from doing that.
So that means, see, business and industry will always have a challenges, be it India, be it Germany, be it anywhere else. We have to live with that. Having said that, do you anticipate a cluster approach like Dahej? Is it good enough like Dahej or Syensqo enough, or you expect that this kind of a concept should be every state or every such port-based or industry-based situation, cluster approach should be there?
I think cluster approach is definitely something which is worthwhile and the most efficient as far as, we are approaching the world. When you look at the world around you, what are the issues that affect you probably in the next 15, 20 years? One is the carbon footprint. If you look at the carbon footprint issues, you have to reduce the amount of transportation, you have to reduce the amount of carbon that you are emitting and so on. As a result, you have to make sure you're closest to the ports, you're closest to your suppliers, you're the closest to areas where your feedstock can come in, which would mean that cluster approach for larger chemical industry is a must. But having said that, one must understand and one must completely be aware of the fact that chemical industry is a hazardous industry. Whether you like it or not, that's a fact. But it's also a feedstock to everything. Whether you want a shirt, whether you want a tie, whether you want a pair of spectacles, or whether you want glasses, whether you want to eat something, whether you want to drink something, chemical industry is inbuilt in every part and every form of your daily life. So you cannot say no to it. So people who say that chemical industry has a bad name, I am saying that, wrong. It's a part of your daily life. Learn to accept it. And the minute you accept it, your whole viewpoint about looking at that industry will change.
Absolutely.
And what I'm trying to say is that therefore, the cluster approach, when you come around it, first thing you have to make sure that the buffer zone around that cluster has to be absolutely sacrosanct. There is a need for enforcement of that area. If you don't enforce that area, then you will come back to brand new problems, or the same old problems will resurrect. And the friendliness, the approach of being friendly to the industry will disappear, because you're continuously under the lens of some enforcement organization who's saying that, oh, well, you're emitting something so much, you should have emitted something so much because there is residential around you. I'm sorry, the residential approvals came after the industry came in. So you'll have to actually figure that out as to how you want to implement these cluster zones and how you want to enforce those zones.
So as Gharda, or for a company of your size, you are one of the most prominent company, consistently very highly profitable in spite of a good R&D cost. Do you expect the company like yours, or a UPL or PI Industries, or any of the agrochem companies which you feel that are going really well, they're extremely valuable? You are a private company, but I'm sure if it were a listed company, your valuation would not have been lower than PI for sure. Having said that, do you expect this cluster approach, feed-based and market-based, petrochemical-based input or a green chemical based? You expect this Indian company to go and set up factories outside of India, or within India set up a great market outside of India?
I think that is dependent on need basis, more or less. Today, if you ask me, I prefer to set up our plants in India. We don't have any plants overseas. And we are conscious of the fact that we are happy that we don't have plant overseas. Because I think, what do you need to set up a plant? You need good manpower, we have it. You need land, we have it. You need good, efficient facilities to ensure that your effluents and everything can be taken care of. That is available. We have to make sure that there's an environment of regulatory aspects which can be taken care of. That is available. So I'd see no reason why I should go overseas to do something, unless there is a pressing reason, which is like, for example, that the raw material is not available in India. And
The raw material is petrochemical based and needs to be piped out and trade situation or a EOP or any kind of situation.
That, I see no reason why we should do that. But anyway, having said that, there are lots of industries who want to be overseas because they have various benefits which are coming out of, there are acquisitions, there are other reasons why they would like to be. So it's perfectly fine. For us, of course, I speak for Gharda Chemicals from that standpoint, is that we prefer to manufacture in India, and we are extremely happy in manufacturing in India. And as we move ahead, India has its own challenges. Which country does not, like you said earlier? But having said that, that doesn't mean we can't be friendly enough. We must be friendly to the industry. We have to build a mechanism. We have to build an environment which is supportive of growth, and we have to make sure that that growth becomes inclusive as we move forward.
Absolutely. So chemical sector is anyway known for investment upfront, returns later. Heavy on capex, but smooth on operations once your supply chain is in cease. In last 20-25 years time, have you ever faced a situation where lack of capital has blocked your growth path?
I can speak for our company. I've been associated with the company for about 16 years, and honestly, I see that situation has not come to Gharda Chemicals as such, because one is that because the basis of R&D itself, and I think our founder, our chairman, who's the more or less like the guru in the industry for many people, and also because of the vision that he had. We didn't go public because we did not want to take public money for experimentation. So as a result, we will never go public. because we continue to experiment, we continue to come up with new products, which would mean that public money would be at stake. So we do not want to do that. That is the reason why the company never went public. It did not even consider going public. But we haven't felt that, but I know the industry has felt that. Way back when the company was started in 1964, Dr. Gharda took approximately 1.5 years to get a loan of 1 lakh. But he took the loan of the lakh just because it was approved, and he gave it the same day because the business had already started making its money.
So that leads to my next question from Shitij. Shitij, you come from the world of providing capital, you have good exposure to M&As, working, corporate, restructuring. You always see from an IndiaRF perspective, opportunity in a problem and problem in an opportunity, right? From your perspective, you also have been a good example of at least buying 3 good chemical sector companies. 2 of them are clients I know exactly well. How do you see from a perspective of a mismatch in capital, opportunity fund to grow value out of it?
Yeah. So thanks for having me here. I think so. From an India perspective, we are a capital provider, but we also sort of owner manager. Right? So reflecting on comments made by Nilesh and Mukesh, I think we only believe India is a growth story. Right? So we invest in mid-market Indian companies, which has transformation potential with a control mindset. Across 15 or 16 sectors, largely industrial, right? And we coincidentally own 3 businesses, or 2 and third in the making, which are only export focused, right? So we firmly believe in the, sort of India as a market, as an opportunity, as a domestic consumption base, as Mukesh rightly mentioned, but also as an export potential, whether it's active pharmaceutical ingredients or sort of bromine that we owned, which we just recently exited, and getting into flavors and fragrances and so on and so forth. I think we do see a lot of opportunity there. From our perspective, capital is a means to end. So while we invest across debt and equity, that's just the solution provider for us. I think Nilesh is right. I think many people have struggled, from a capital standpoint, and I think that's where we sort of come in. Providing that capital, which could be either last mile, or it could be expansion, or it could just be under investment, right? And that's a big theme for us as a special situation fund, to invest in assets which there is potential to transform, and there's limited investment that has happened in the past, or there are succession issues and so on and so forth. So for us, mid-market is very, very exciting. I think we've invested across about $850 million across 11 investments in 9 sectors, and chemicals/pharma being like 4 of our 11 portfolio companies. And I think we continue to be extremely bullish. I think from a capital standpoint, I think there is availability. I think technically we are a foreign direct investment because we manage money for overseas investors. And I think as a private capital provider, I think there is a lot of money now available, especially in the past 15 years, 10, 15 years. I think we've seen India improve as a economy, as well as from a regulatory standpoint, to enable, sort of having a stable environment to invest. And I think, you are seeing a lot of inflows happening in the country. To that extent, I think local regulations and laws are important. I think similarly investing, that, like you said, dispute resolution, and in investing, there was no bankruptcy court, right? So I think that got sorted out, I think 7-8 years ago. So that has seen a lot of transformation from a capital solution perspective. Of course, capital market remains open to investors as well, but I think private capital is available. I think in the form of debt, equity. I think we are flexible. We believe capitalism means to the end. And I think so we take controlling equity positions or control positions in portfolio companies, and then put our management team. I think there's enough and more talent available. There's good amount of infrastructure slash regulatory environment available to grow and transform these businesses. We've seen that in some of our portfolio companies.
From a provider of capital or providing financial solution to companies in mismatch, to transforming itself a mindset, to owning the business using the capital, without starting a business or without being an entrepreneur to start a business. How do you see because others' problem become your opportunity one way or the other way. That means your mindset has to be extremely positive to see a solution. So can you sir throw what are the parameters under which you evaluate an opportunity when the opportunity itself has a problem?
So I think from our perspective, if you look at top down, right, I think themes are very important, right? So we are talking about chemicals. I think the opportunity is large, but there will be 2 trillion, 1.5 trillion, 1 trillion, only time will tell, but there is definitely growth, right, in the theme. And so we pick up themes like this. So, Archean was a good example for us. Bromine, there are 5 producers in the world, right? So I think thematically, there's always going to be demand because it goes into all your high-end stuff. Very few examples of India exporting to China. This is one of them. This is one of them. But I think those themes are important, right? So I think pharmaceutical is a very good example in chemicals where, China will do your, sort of raw materials, and then you would essentially formulate, create active ingredients and so on and so forth. So themes are very important. So we pick up these themes and then we look at opportunities within those themes. As long as the sector has good potential and there is a reasonably good manufacturing base / manpower available, I think there is enough talent available in the market to transform these businesses. So I think from our perspective, the focus really is partnering with the right people besides the theme. So, sort of Ranjit and Arkin, or, there are several examples. 5 of our portfolio companies have promoter, owner, managers as well. And so, team is important, partnership is important. And then investing in the right places, taking the right strategic decisions. So we essentially focus a lot of our energies initially towards identifying what problems we're going to resolve and how, and constantly think about what could go wrong.
So when you see all the equity investor, unlike public market, where public market once you go for IPO, the public investors keep changing hands between each other, the number of capital supplier is the same. But in case of private equity or a simple institution, the capital provided need to find some exit. Now exit invariably happens only either through IPO or a buyback or somebody else coming and buying your companies or the stake itself. So as a fund with a sizable money under your control and is an opportunity which is going to go up only, your first bet is on the promoter or the management team, a business case or the market.
So the first bet is on the sector, right? I think once the sector is right, I think it is the right team. Whether it's promoter or, we like the sector. So like the active pharmaceutical company that we acquired,
Yeah.
that's 100% acquisition. So we've actually put a leadership team in place there. So it's second is the team, then third is the whatever else you said.
I got my answer.
Yeah.
I think this is exactly right, because once you are dissociated from the problem becomes a solution, and the solution is an opportunity. So once you have a solution in your mind, the problems are never a problem. That is the answer to you, Mukesh. That problems are everywhere. At times we feel with the problem. At times that become an opportunity for the other side of it.
I spend 80% of my time solving problems.
That's it.
But you have to be positive, right? I think
When he's saying about Archeon, it's a classic case. A company is in a deep state, but a very strong believer promoter who is not from a chemical background, by the way. And today's both the 4 companies are my client in the bromide sector. I can relate with the situation. They just bought over the loan in a single check from a fund, I put more capital, I put everything. The stake to them almost came free. It's $1 billion company now, right? Nidhi,
If you're trying to convince me to invest in India, you're wasting your time because I'm already sold on India, right? I'm an Indian.
Exactly.
You asked me for the perspective of foreigners, and that's what I was giving
I didn't
you.
get my answer
It's another
that way.
it's another game to convince them to come
I've
in.
not seen Solvay investing $200 million physical upfront grassroots investment of a capex. Until such thing happens, then all you can say, yes, we're an Indian mindset
Well,
company.
we
Where
don't
is the MNC?
advertise, but in the last 3 years, we've already spent $100 million in India.
I said incremental.
Mukesh,
Now that we are new, we will have a new thing coming up,
Okay, no,
but
it's
I can't talk about it.
Nidhi, sorry, Nidhi, you come from a background of a growth capital, multiples, 360, now in your own raising capital. And you yourself can be seen to be an entrepreneur or a startup in a PE fund perspective. What are the what are the excitement level of you when you see a Indian entrepreneur in chemical sector or anything which is a manufacturing base to put your capital on the table? As a new fund, what is two or three things you would like to first be clear about before you put your capital? Because it's not only your capital, it's a third party capital also. Double whammy.
So Mahesh, as you rightly pointed out that, I come from a growth PE mindset, right? Sector is important. Chemical sector has shown, demonstrated, value creation for investors over the last 2 decades. The India's chemistry skills, which have created behemoths in pharmaceuticals, why can it not happen in the chemical sector as well, right? It's the same chemicals, after all, chemistry skills. Where the growth PE investor, differs from a control investor is that for us, the founder becomes very, very critical. So we spend a lot of time, trying to understand the founder, trying to understand his vision, trying to understand his leadership skills, style, and most importantly, his capacity to work with institutional investors. That becomes very important, for us when we are looking to invest into any company. As you're aware, at 361, I invested into Aether Industries, who held in very high regard. What attracted us to Aether was the founders, the technocrat founders, exceptional technocrat skills, and the R&D team that they had built was the largest for, any company of that size in the chemical sector. They had demonstrated the ability to, build very differentiated, unique capabilities, very master complex chemistries, come up with limited competition products, gain market leadership, in those products. As a growth PE investor, I invest for a 5 to 7 year time horizon. For me, what is very important is secular growth, consistency of returns, right? And specialty chemicals ticks the boxes in all of those fronts. It is hard for us to invest into commodity because we only have a limited time horizon. We can't invest on hope, right? We have to really just invest on capabilities. And specialty chemicals, you want to see, we want to back specialty chemical companies that have, have shown the capability to build unique chemistry skills, come up with new products every, not just one trick pony, but come up with multiple products, really demonstrate their chemistry skills at the core of it, and gain and consolidate market share. So that's what is important for
When
us.
in the time of exit, there is always a human psychology that thoda or, right? Every year, right? So when you invest, thoda come. When you exit, thoda or. So what is the kind of a mindset it comes when you exit at the time, say your market cap of Ether has gone to double size and you feel, oh my God, my double money is not become double. How do you handle that?
As a growth PE investor, what one invests behind is not just the organic growth of the company, but one also wants valuation re-rating to happen, right? And that's where we actually step in and work with the founders. Where does that valuation re-rating come from? From improved governance. I've invested into situations where there were no board meetings happening before we invested. We put in place, strong governance, compliance mechanism, change the auditors, bring one of the big fours as the statutory internal auditor. So it
for
just
the sake of changing or change for the betterment.
change for the betterment, right? You turn the spotlight on the company and help them become versions of themselves. You try and attract, around the talent piece, one works with the companies to help put in the right organization structure, attract the right kind of talent, incentivize, create alignment by incentivizing that talent base. Then third is the strategy. Once there is a institutional investor on the cap table, it signals certain institutionalization and a certain capacity and a desire to grow. it attracts more, it helps companies attract more M&A opportunities, more partnership opportunities, where we work with them to structure these better. And then at the fund that I'm looking to set up, I'm in the process of launching my own PE fund. We're also building a deep bench of functional experts, experts drawn from the areas of HR, finance, technology, who can, work with our founders whom we would back. And I'm looking to launch an early stage growth PE fund. So the intent is that we should have a deep bench of functional experts who can work with our companies, in different functional areas to help them grow. And fifth, of course, the network. In the fund that I was managing at 361, I had 1,500 investors. Just imagine the power of that network,
Knowledge.
right? So
Knowledge
looking to
and
replicate, yes, looking to replicate something similar.
You rightly said that you back, as a Kale said, it's a control mindset. You have a business case as a first entry point to get excited. And you said your first entry point is to evaluate a promoter because you back a promoter because you are placing capital below their balance sheet and you're helping them to grow this business. But then help is taken only when someone wants to take your help. Money is always in need. At that case, when you want to change the processes like changing auditor, changing like say board meeting or being accountable, compliance or MIS or asking more, batao mujhe roz. Then a person goes to bank, the bankers, they accept them because they know that यहाँ पे sign करना है, I'll get a loan. They don't read the agreement. There's far more draconian clause in the bank loan agreement than a P fund, if I really understand. But for a P fund, you are sometimes seen as an intruder or killing their freedom to operate because you question them. How do you manage those conflicted position with the people, the promoter, who generally will be strong-minded people?
See, obviously, inviting somebody to your home and
Like a
developing,
paying guest.
yes,
Knowing well the paying guest will go away is some point of time.
is not an easy one. I think where it helps is one, of course, as we are, looking to invest, we do evaluate the founder on his openness, on his influenceability, on his attitude towards good governance. But I think where we also spend a lot of time is in understanding that what are the gaps, what are the areas where we would like to work with the company, right? And establish, some kind of alignment with the founder before we invest. So the founder also knows what to expect. Where is it that, that this PE investor is likely to be spending time with them, right? Just having that conversation before investing and setting the expectations right, I think that's the way one has to really
But as we all
do
said,
it.
business can be planned, but actions are never planned. Actions are actionable items. At that time, when you find a position that you invested and the market position changed substantially, and after 3 years' time, when you time to exit, exactly at that time the company needs money to sustain. How do you handle that position?
As an investor, I've been in multiple such situations, not in the chemical sector, but in other sector. One such company I would mention was in the consumer space, your typical direct-to-consumer company. That was not an investment I had done, but it was inherited by me at 361. And just when I stepped in, they needed capital because they were burning capital every month. We put in some amount of capital, and then I told the founder that, look, we are reaching our limit. The life is ending. We will not be in a position to support you further. So they got the message, and we launched a sale process. You will not believe it. We only got, so I worked with them closely on that, helping them identify the bank. And, there were multiple PE investors involved and in managing the sale process. And we had only one term sheet, but we concluded that transaction. It was an M&A transaction.
Was it amicable?
Huh?
Was it amicable?
Yeah. So, but in the process, we did not make money. We only
That's fine.
recovered our principal.
It was not a
But
loan
we
given
took
by
that
you.
call.
It was investment
Because
by you.
I think what is most important is that company. Founders had also spent more than a decade. So we together agreed with the founder that, look, there is we are not in a position to provide capital. The best recourse for the company is to now, join a strategic and become a part of that group which will have which has the financial resources. And today the founders are in so much better place. So this company is Ustra. Kale backed VLCC bought them. There was a situation when they were, running out of capital.
And actually created a good value for that.
Yes.
That means you
right.
should be
And now
happy.
the founders are in a far better
Now-
shape. The brand survives. The company is in a better shape. Similarly, I had been in a situation where the founder did not agree to go down that strategic route, and it's a very unfortunate place. Again, in a
Mukesh is
direct
a
to
flight
consumer
to catch
company.
now, so you'll have to leave now. So my
Yes.
last line from you, as an MNC part of this, what is the last message to Indian companies you would like to give to make it a $2 trillion much before the target of 2046? As an MNC, you're still an MNC, a message to Indian companies, the new entrepreneurs in the chemical sector, what one message you'd like to give to be able to achieve 2 trillion by 47? Before and how?
Who am I to give any advice to the Indian companies? I think they are much better. I think something which works for everybody in chemical industry is focus on innovation. I think that's the key. We have the skill sets in this country. We have capital. You've been talking about capital, and I think McKinsey came out with a study over the last decade. Indian chemical industry has offered higher returns on capital than any other
Anywhere
country.
in the world.
Than any other country. So
this
you
will
have all the
continue to do so.
resources.
And this will continue to do so.
You just need to do a better job of managing perceptions and keep doing what we are doing.
I
I
got my
think
answer.
reach a scale. That's it. And I'm sorry, but I'm out of time. I need to leave. I have picked up the
Don't
mic
worry.
to say sorry, I'm leaving, and you asked me a question.
No worry,
So
you
I'm
go,
just
we'll
good
bitch
at this.
about you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Sorry, but I need to.
Nilesh, back to Indian perspective, my last question to all three of you now, if you have to have one or two of those things to be able to find, one is actionable item and one is a production, that this is I'll not do and this is I do. To be able to reach a mindset of 2 trillion by 47, what is it I'll do and what is it I'll not do?
I think if we have to touch the 2 trillion, we're not very far off from that target if we decide to go ahead in, focused in that path. Because if you look at it today, we're already, like I said, China is about 44% of its GDP, and if you probably convert that into numbers, there's tremendous this thing there, which means that as soon as there is a global, and what you see currently is there's a global need to realign and, kind of create a very resilient supply chain system, which would mean that the opportunity is all moving towards, in countries like India and, maybe Southeast Asia, some countries will be beneficiaries of this as well. So there is an opportunity there, there's a large opportunity there. So I think the focus is always to, like Mukesh also said, I would continue to say, I work with an innovation company which is very strong on R&D, which is very strong on innovation. I say focus on that. I see that there is a need to do something indigenously rather than having to take technology from somewhere else or copy technology from somewhere else to try and to do. So I think only then the belief to achieve that number will emerge from there. I think end of the day, Indian technologists and engineers and R&D people are extremely smart, intelligent, very capable.
Most of the global companies have a technical center and captive center in India only.
Absolutely.
That
Gives the answer away, no?
That means innovations actually are having here. The benefit of it is going else.
Absolutely. And why not? You have local consumption as well. Unlike China, India's local consumption is very strong.
So that means being innovative and not to do is that means not to copy others and make their own essays. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Kaleji, you what to do and what not to do.
No, I agree fully with what Nilesh has said. Insofar as what is to be done, right? I think in addition to that, I think just creating the right environment, right? I think, I think in our portfolio companies, we've seen, like Nidhi mentioned, creating the right governance structure, but also creating an environment for people to thrive, right? So whether it's, sort of creating the infrastructure, creating a team, creating a sounding board of experts who you can sort of interact with,
Participatory.
participatory, and empower people. Yeah, I think we've seen wonders. Like I think we've seen promoters acknowledge that you professionalize the team, and they're taking a back seat, right? So
They're happy to do that actually these days.
they're very happy to do that. So I think we also work a lot in partnership with promoters. There are fixed mindsets, and I think if you look at across the country, I think successful groups, right, who have transformed themselves, is just by listening and continuously learning from experiences overseas. So I think my take is I think we are in a very good place to get to whatever the target that we have. I think we have to create the right ecosystems and sort of empower. I think mid-market India
So empowerment is a key to 2047. Right?
empowerment, and I think also creating the, like I said, the right environment and
ecosystem.
ecosystem. Yeah.
Nidhi,
Mahesh, the previous decade was one where manufacturing was not a very hot sector.
it was a did not like sector.
Yes,
Let it be done by
yes,
China.
single digit, multiple पे EV EBITDA पे deals मिलती थी, and even then the founders used to struggle to raise capital. And today it is exactly the reverse.
Now you call mid-teen, right?
I think capital.
language.
I think capital today is not a constraint, and founders should start thinking not about linear growth, but far more exponential growth, because really, this decade, at least the start of this decade, has been very different from what the previous decade was. The kind of optimism that I see today, the kind of capital availability, right? It was very different from the last, from the last decade. So I think there is a need to reimagine the possibilities and to scale faster. The second thing which I must say, during the course of my coverage of chemical sector, I've met many founders, many professionals, and almost every second person I have met is from UDCT. I think UDCT for this country, in terms of entrepreneurship, has done far more than, IITs. I think we need more such UDCTs in this country for the
No doubt
chemical
about
sector.
So I think
What Nidhi said sounds like music, by the way, for all manufacturing companies in India.
I'm an engineer myself. I'm a maths person. So I think this has been a good interesting, and the last line from my side is like picking up all this is we have to believe that there is a market available. Market is available. People are available. Perception is only to be managed. The only thing which lack today is ambition and a belief system that yes, we are here and we are going to be there. If that is a system, I don't think that 2047 is a target. I think it should be done much before that. And with that, I think end this session, every one of you will be wanting to go home back. And we remain open to any question, any kind of a awkward or a straight question. Feel happy.